Hello and welcome to the Candid Cashflow podcast, episode 5. I'm your host, Ava Fales. This episode is sponsored by Draft to Digital. If you're thinking about getting into self-publishing, drafttodigital.com is a great place to start. Upload your manuscript as a Word document and publish it on up to 10 digital storefronts, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and iBooks. Did we mention it's free? What are you waiting for? Today's episode, we're going to be discussing self-publishing, where to start on this topic. I published my first book in 2011 for Kindle. It was a nonfiction title called WordPress Websites for Writers. And while it never became a bestseller or really did anything worthy of note, what it did do was make me a few $100s over the years since, and it was enough to keep me interested in self-publishing. I'd always wanted to publish my own books and actually had several stories just sitting around on my hard drive, but I never really did anything with it. It was like it was sitting there waiting for me to discover self-publishing via the Kindle platform. I actually published my debut novel, and that was my third book in the fall of 2014. So there was quite a gap between that first book and when I decided to publish additional titles after that. Then in early 2015, I came across a guy on YouTube, and he was claiming to make $10,000 a month publishing books for Kindle. And that inspired me a little bit, and I went on a publishing spree, and I've been publishing, I'd say, fairly regularly ever since, a couple of titles a year. At the very least. In 2015, I published the bulk of my books done. I think I have 13 total. I certainly don't make $10,000 a month, but what I do make is consistent money every month from those books, and that's why Kindle and self-publishing is one of my favorite income streams. So let's jump into it. So let's talk about writing your book or not writing it. Writing a book can seem like a daunting task, and it can be for sure. However, it does not have to be. Your book doesn't have to be novel length. There are books of all lengths on Amazon. I wouldn't suggest putting out a book less than 10,000 words in length, but it has been done. You might be sitting there thinking, I'm not a writer, so this whole show is in the toilet for me. Listen, you don't have to be a writer to publish books. Yeah, you heard that correctly. That guy that I mentioned earlier that I found on YouTube who was making the $10,000 a month, he didn't write the majority of his books. That was a new concept to me. There's nothing nefarious that was going on there. He didn't plagiarize or, get content from the public domain. He hired writers to ghostwrite his books for him. And around that time, the going rate for a 10,000 word book was just $100. A $100 investment can get you a book that you can publish and make money off of. Let's discuss editing and formatting. First and foremost, don't make this part more complicated than it needs to be. You don't need any special software to write, edit, and format your book. I write all of my books in Google Docs. I have Word, but I prefer the simplicity of Google Docs, and it also automatically backs up to the cloud, just to name one of the many benefits of using that platform. A good number of self-publishers will tell you to hire an editor. I can certainly see the benefits of doing so, but it can be very pricey, and the more you spend on your book, the more in the red you are when you publish it.
So it's going to reduce your ROI, your return on investment, the more money you put into your book. When I started out, there was no way that I was going to be able to afford to pay an editor. So while it's not ideal, I developed a technique to self-edit my books. And if you're a writer, you know that self-editing is difficult and pretty much a no-no as a professional writer. But, you know, the need to be able to do this, have the experience of publishing my own book outweighed all of that. What I do is I go through and I edit once for grammar, punctuation, and flow. Then I go through the book backwards. I start at the end and I go one sentence at a time and edit sentence by sentence. Finally, after that, I go through the book again just to pick up anything that I might have missed. And I space those edits a few days apart just to let the content rest a little bit. If I'm not in a big hurry, I'll space them further apart than that. And I've never received any complaints regarding grammar, etc. in my books. And I'm not saying there's not mistakes in them, but for the most part, they're readable and I don't really get complaints. Because, you know, Amazon reviewers are merciless. If there's anything wrong with your book, they won't let you know. So I've never really had that problem yet. I'm sure there are some self-publishers out there who are appalled by me admitting that I self-edit my own books, but I don't think anyone should not publish their book because they can't afford an editor. As for formatting, it's super simple. I do the majority of my formatting when I write the book, and there's just a few simple rules that I follow. Number one, don't ever use the tab key. It does not play well with Amazon's processing software that your book goes through before you publish it. Limit your font size to 16 points. Assign your chapters the heading 1 style so they all appear in the table of content. Insert page breaks after each section of your book. So you have your title page, insert page break, table of content, insert page break, introduction, page break, chapter 1, page break. That way everything in the book appears in the appropriate order and it's broken apart so that chapter 1's not beginning on the same page as the last paragraph of your introduction. And then after that, just use basic readable fonts. Don't try to get too fancy with it. And if you're a writer, if you've been practicing, writing online for any length of time, you should have all of the expertise to publish your own book. You should have all of the know-how you need for all aspects of the self-publishing process. If you find that you're short in an area, hire it out. So, should you publish in ebook format or paperback? Why not both and audiobooks too? Amazon makes it all possible. They have platforms for all 3 formats and it's free. For ebooks, they have the Kindle Direct Publishing Platform or KDP. You can also publish your paperback through there, but most self-publishers use CreateSpace instead, and we'll talk about that more in just a minute. If you have an Amazon account, you already have access to KDP. Just type kdp.amazon.com into your browser and sign in with your Amazon login details. CreateSpace is also owned by Amazon, but you'll need to create a separate account to use that platform. Even though KDP has an option where you can publish in paperback format, most self-publishers go through CreateSpace because the royalty structure is better and there are more distribution options. For audiobooks, you can use the Audiobook Creation Exchange or ACX. Like the other two, it is also owned by Amazon, and you can log in with your Amazon account. You have 3 options on that platform. You can narrate your own book yourself. You can hire a talent to narrate it for you at a cost, or you can split royalties with your talent, which means you get 50%, they get 50%. I've had mixed experiences on that platform, all good, but I got really lucky with my first couple books that I put on there and secured pro talent who happened to be passionate about the topic. So I got her for a royalty share. I wasn't as fortunate when I submitted my novel to that platform. So it seems like doing a royalty share on longer books might be more difficult unless you have proven sales of your paperback and ebook. So in the near future, I plan to narrate my novel myself, so I'll have that experience as well. Sometimes Amazon can kind of seem like an evil monopoly, but these free platforms that kind of share the wealth with regular people like you and myself, I think that's pretty extraordinary. As far as advanced techniques, there are some things you can do to increase the reach of your books. If you're looking to take your publishing beyond the novelty/hobby level, you can seek out hot niches where the books sell themselves. I reached my first 3-digit royalty check with a low-carb cookbook, for example. I recently edited, formatted, and published a book for a client in the real estate niche that hit #1 bestseller on Amazon in 2 weeks. That was something that I had not even accomplished with my own books. So it's possible to do huge things with this platform. You're also free to go beyond Amazon and Kindle, and that's where Draft to Digital comes in. Draft to Digital can publish your title to 9 additional platforms, including a couple of big players like Barnes & Noble and iBooks. You also have the opportunity right now to nab yourself a Google Play publisher account. That platform has been unavailable to new publishers for the last 2 years and just recently opened back up. Be sure to grab the show notes for this episode. All those links, all the previously discussed content links will be included in those notes. If self-publishing is something that you want to learn, I've written some extensive tutorials on the topic with screenshots, etc., which I will make available to you for free. Be sure to grab the show notes for this episode. I also have a good friend who has a YouTube channel dedicated to self-publishing. So just search YouTube for Self-Publishing with Dale. And I'll also have his links to his blog as well as his YouTube channel and his podcast in the show notes. He covers all aspects of self-publishing and interviews other self-publishers, so you get a really well-rounded bit of information from him. So be sure to check Dale out. That's Self-Publishing with Dale, selfpublishingwithdale.com. It's been a pleasure to talk with you this week. Thanks so much for tuning in. I wanted to let you all know that for the foreseeable future, the Candid Cashflow podcast will drop new episodes each week on Wednesday. I'd love to hear from you if you're finding the information that I'm putting out helpful. A shout out to Jeff, who reached out to me in the last week to let me know just that. Next up, I'm going to discuss making money providing a service, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on that. Until next time, turning your passion into cash flow.